I had the pleasure of working with all them old timers that come up when they didn't have radio or TV, and all they had to think about was a cow.
That's right.
And those guys, very few of them were what I'd call horsemen, but they were cowmen. And they didn't care for horse, how pretty he was, or if he could turn around between here and that house over there, as long as he'd cow a little bit and they could get their job done, and that's what they did. I mean, you know, you see one of them out there working a roundup, and the horse would be working pretty good, and you'd get on him and couldn't get him to do nothing. You know, but I mean, I expected mine to handle a little. I
Handle a lot. Don't let him kid you.
I messed with mine quite a bit, and some of the early horses didn't have quite as much cow, and I figured out pretty quick that if you get them to handle enough, you could put them into position enough times correctly, pretty quick they'd pick that up. I mean, I was real consistent with what I did, the way I turned the horse around. I never was very good at getting a horse to stop right until I went to roping on them. But I didn't work on it a lot either. I didn't want one stopping, I wanted them going somewhere.
That's right.
You know.
That's right.
But, I mean, Lewis's had lots of horses, and I started a good many. And if one got what I thought was too gentle, I'd swap him to somebody for a bronc they hadn't started and start over, just because I liked it.
Well, you was good at it.
Well, I had, you know.
And Johnny, it was good at it.
It was just consistency is all it was amounted to. But at one time I was riding, I had 13 horses in my strain. 8 of them was under 3 years old. You know, I rode, if it's necessary, I'd take 2 horses, ride a bronc on the drive, and then take an older, better horse, work around the roundup.
Now there's a difference between, you know, we mentioned this before back when we were doing this oral, is the gather's different from the roundup. A lot of people in town, when you say roundup, that's what they think the whole thing is just included in that roundup. So if you be a little bit more specific on
working the roundup, I mean, you gather, like my first pasture outside my horse pasture at Sandy was 7,000 acres. We'd throw them together, make 2 sides of the drive come together down there on the creek and hold them up out there in the creek, and then the branding pen there on the creek wouldn't hold all of them. I mean, there might be 300 cows in the roundup, you know, and you'd pair them up, so many cows, and put them in there and have a crew over there branding, and then have a crew out there working around. Have the old timers usually out there work the roundup, because that's, you know, they let the kids do the flanking and all that.
That's right. Well, that's kind of the way you earned your way up the ladder, so to speak. I mean, they seniority and just time in the saddle, and been there and done that kind of stuff. On
that old pasture particularly was big and rough and brushy, and I mean, it'd take a lot of people to make a drive on it. And when we put out word we was working, there might be 25 people show up, and nearly all of them was good hands.
But that was neighbors and the ranch crew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's everybody. I know one time we worked there one day, and it was on a Saturday, and everybody brought their kids. I counted 33 people horseback. You know, a lot of folks don't understand that.
And Frank run the drive.
Oh, when you was working your country, you was the boss. He'd tell you what he wanted done. He wouldn't tell you how to do it. And if something backfired later on in the day, he'd say, well, you might have done it like this. He wouldn't get on to you about it. But he let you learn, and you always felt like he was training on you.
That's a good thing.
I mean, he had a pretty young crew. We had some older guys, but you always felt like he was teaching you, you know.
That's a good thing, right? I
mean, he took a liking to me, and he liked my horses, and I made good horses out of some that shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
You know.
To hear folks tell it, you made a heap of them good and out horses that shouldn't have been.
I mean, you know, but that was just catching them every day or every other day.
Yeah.
I mean,
whatever they come in rotation.
Best horse I ever rode was headed for the condemns in a pretty fast way.
And what's a condemn?
Well, that's the ones that go to the killers. I mean, when this horse was a baby, we picked colts in order of seniority. And his mother was an old G.I. Joe kind of running bred mare. And the most athletic horse I believe I ever saw. And I had an older brother to this horse. They'd buck a little along, you know, not bad. Had a roan wolf horse out of that mare that he kind of got off on the bad foot with some folks, and I wound up riding him. But anyway, old Casey was on the mare that year, and Bobby Boston picked him. Of course, I was way down on the list, and I got, you know, what was left over. And I said, Bobby, won't you let me have that horse? And he said, why? And I said, because you won't never ride him.
You told him that?
Yeah, I said, you won't never ride him. He said, what makes you think so? I said, look at his head, look at his eye. That horse ain't going to be gentle. You won't never ride him. Anyway, he picked him, and he takes him to Antelope. He kept most of his horses, young horses, at Antelope. Donnie Hall lived down there. And they got him up. They never did do nothing to him. I don't know that he even halter broke. And they took him up to Ashtola at Burrell, and Junior Crump was working for Burrell, and they started him. And that was the most skin-up horse I ever saw. You could tie him up, and he'd sit back and bang his head on them pipe fences, and saddle him up, and he'd jump by you and kick at you and buck over everything got in his way.
I'm not laughing, Johnny. I just seen it. I know what you're talking about.
They got him started. Burl and Junior got him started, and Junior was riding him, I think, kind of getting along. Well, Bobby, for some reason, takes him back to Antelope and turned him back out. Well, he was coming three past when Burl got him back. Burl didn't have no help then. Burl wasn't old, but he was old enough to, you know, he didn't want to
be riding them kind of
run
by and kick at your horse.
I stopped in there one day, and he said, I wish you'd trade for that brown horse. And I said, why? And he said, I got to ride this dread catching him.
That from Burl Holler to say that now.
He told me later, when I was working up there, they started an AI program. We built a barn, had a sand pit in it and whatnot, and he was riding him in there, and that horse bucked him off. 25-foot square pin, bucked him off and kicked him in the belly before he hit the ground. Kicked the watch off his arm.
Meant to, yeah.
Meant to.
Yeah, he did.
Well, I come back through town and run into Bobby, and I said, hey, I'll make a horse trade with you. I had an old gentle sleigh maker horse called Shag. Bobby had a gray yearling at my house. I said, I'll trade you old Shag for that brown horse at Ashtola and that gray yearling you got at my house. He didn't take him very long. Said, I believe I'll trade with you, from what Burl says. But you know, I got my little brother to come go with me. The first time I rode that horse, I hauled him over to the creek. Had a really good place over there to get out in the creek and be out of the brush and out of the canyons. And little brother was riding the bronc. I said, get on him out there and get him warmed up. If Casey runs off or bucks me off, whatever, don't chase him. Just let him do his thing. You know, he get on him. This horse is gentle. He gets on him and that dude runs off, just running circles around me. And I get on old Casey and I said, okay, let's go. He turns him loose. Old bronc took off down the creek about 90 miles an hour. And old Casey trotting along there watching him. Like, what's wrong with you, you know? But I rode that horse around there for a while and never had no trouble. And we was gathering up a Sandy there one day and had to trot away from the house. And it's dark. I mean, and there's a jungle there. You just had to go through trees, you know. Got off down there about 300 yards west of the house, and something boogered him, and he spun back, and I grabbed him with that right spur, and let me tell you, the world fell apart. That rascal.
I'm not laughing, John. I know.
My daughter and another kid was behind me, and they was from here to them pickups behind. If there'd been somebody up there with me, it probably wouldn't happen. But anyway, old Casey, I rode him a lot further than anybody thought. I rode him 8 or 9 jumps, and he never hit the ground looking the same direction. One way and then the other, and you know. And he finally turned off the road, and there's 2 big old hackberry trees there, and I knew I wasn't going to get through there going down that cow trail. I throwed my leg over, going to bail out, and he hit me in the rear of that saddle, and I went about 15 foot in the air. And big, long story, but he run off, had a new saddle on, he run off. And
did he tear your saddle up?
No,
well,
I had
praise God for that.
I had left another horse in the corral because I was afraid that might happen. I had another saddle, so I went back, got it to the horse, and I left Donnie Hall there looking for him. He showed up after a while. He said, well, I got him, gathered the horses and got him, but he said, your bridle was gone. Well, it was just an old bridle anyway, but Anyway, that evening I walked back down there, that bridle was laying just a little way from where I hid. He bucked the bridle off too.
Oh,
But that horse, I rode that horse 18 years and never got on him that he didn't hump up. I figured out, I rode him one other time that he really bucked. I rode him and figured out I need to talk him out of that because I wasn't hoss enough to ride him.
For Johnny Hill to say that, folks, that said something. I mean, because he didn't come in it.
You could
get on and ride him.
You could get on him and he'd hump up and just stand there. Sometimes he'd get down on his belly and just shake, just, you know, make you nervous as heck. But I've had old Horace McClellan one time, I got on him and he did that. And he just, I knew if you didn't touch him with a spur or a bridle, a little bit he'd raise up and trot off and then he's fine. The rest of the day he's as good as gold. He's gonna do his thing first thing. So I got on him and he did that, and Horace watched him a minute. He said, I believe I'd have to get off, and I said, I can't move. Because I know what's going to happen if I do.
If you try to shift your weight or anything.
But actually, if I ever had a reason to be famous over a horse, he was it. He could do more to a cow. And I figured out how to ride him. He could do more to a cow. His grave is right out there behind my house. I buried him at 31 years old. But he was a phenomenal horse. I had a lot of good horses, but we rode the far out of them, you know. Casey was kind of in his prime when Team Penning come along, and I could turn my head and look at a cow, and I don't know how he knew, but he knew which cow I was looking at, and he'd put her out of there. And he could, you have a roundup thrown together somewhere, might be 500 cows in it, and 15 or 20 old wild yearlings. And he could put one of them out of the roundup before they knew what he'd done, and not ever get out of a trot. I mean, he just sneak around and had more cow smarts than any horse I ever saw. But there was 2 years there. I had him and another big old brown horse, half brother to him. They were both Sonata Blues. Safe place around that horse was on him. And for about 2 years, if you saw me, I was riding one of them too, because I was afraid to let them rest.
Yeah,
I kept them tired.
Kept them rode.
And that other horse, called him Sparky. Several people told me, said, you're wasting your time fooling with that idiot. But you know, I rode him 3 years and gave him to Bobby Boston, and he wore him smooth out and loved him. Made a good horse. But it took a long time for him to get gentle. Really did. But the gray horse that I got in the trade with him was old Levi, the old gray horse that Donnie Hall carried the flag on.
Yeah.
And we posted the colors on so much. But that horse was a phenomenal rope horse. He'd drag this barn down if you had asked him to try, you know. I mean, I drug a 2,500-pound bull and trailer by myself on him one time. Regretted it after I did it.
Hurt the horse, or?
Yeah, I kind of stretched the stifle. I mean, but he was 13, 14 years old then, you know. But he was about as good a horse to ride as you'll ever see.